Good afternoon. Thank you again for tuning in and joining us as we continue to live broadcast our tribute to Leon Fleisher. Today is our 6th day of mourning the passing of Mr. Fleisher, of our remembrance of him as a musician, teacher, mentor, and friend. And it is our way of looking forward to bringing his legacy to the generations of musicians to come. Please note the change. Tomorrow the program will go live at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, not the usual 1 p.m. This tribute is made possible by an extraordinary solidarity effort of Mr. Fleischer's students, who put their love and their work together in honor of their noble teacher. They bring their musical offerings. They speak about their mentor. They help us all pay homage to this incredible man, to pledge our own dedication, and to carry on his legacy of the human and artistic values which he taught and upheld himself. We appreciate very much your patience if the artists may experience challenges while connecting. We will do our best to bring the beauty of each presentation to you in its fullest. And now we would like to welcome on our virtual stage Einav Yarden. Einav, so good to see you. Please welcome Einav as she will share her memories and her love for her teacher.
Well, I just want to thank you, Anna, and say that it's great to be here and join this. And thanks for, providing us with this opportunity and putting it, sort of compiling it up so spontaneously. We appreciate it. I guess I'll play now, if that's okay, Anna?
Yes, please do. This was incredibly beautiful. And I want to thank Einav so much for participating in this program. She joined us from Australia. So there's 14 hours.
No, that's Sonia.
Oh, I'm sorry.
From Berlin.
Okay, still many hours difference. And we are incredibly grateful. And now we're going to be moving on to the next presenter. It's difficult sometimes for us to be able to communicate directly in the dialogue with some of the artists because of the challenges of the connection in different places. We'll be moving on to Lura Johnson. And please welcome Lura to the broadcast. Thank you for participating.
Thank you, Anna, and it's been so moving to be a part of this. Your tribute at the beginning, your words were beautiful, as Mr. Fleischer's always were, and we are in mourning, for certain. I wanted to play a slow movement of Beethoven because I studied it with him, and it's an incredibly beautiful piece that I hope describes the peace that he is now feeling. like to just say one thing about Mr. Fleisher, which is that my gratitude towards him is enormous, immeasurable, colossal. Teachers have such a gift to give us. They really give us ourselves. And I've been listening to the discussions earlier in the week from others saying the same thing, that he had a way of teaching us how to be ourselves, how to listen, how to grow, how to learn. And all of those things make him live forever with us. I have one anecdote that I wanted to share. I heard yesterday someone made reference to the fact that many of his students thought of him as a sort of Obi-Wan Kenobi, which is a wonderful analogy. And I think Yoda also, maybe as he grew older, Yoda might also be an appropriate character to imagine. But for me, it has always been Aslan that I associate with Mr. Fleisher. Of course, Aslan is the lion from The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and yes, I'm aware there's somewhat of a messianic reference there, and I'm pretty comfortable with that. So there's Leo the lion, Leon with that mane of amazing hair that he had until his last day. But there was also the wisdom and the patience and the fact that those children loved him and felt guarded and guided and protected by him. And so he will always be my Aslan. Thank you so much for having me.
This was such a beautiful presentation, and for me personally, the reference to Narnia and the nobility of the lion and Leon Fleischer is just so darling. Thank you. Thank you so much, Lura, for bringing this up. We'll be back to Einav Yarden. She would like to share a few words as well. Thank you, Einav, for coming back.
Sure, I'm sorry, I guess, I don't know if we misunderstood that. I had meant I wanted to speak after the playing. The Leo and the lion image is perfectly fitting. Definitely that here, and I mean the whole presentation. I wanted to share a sentence, an idea. It's more than a sentence, of course, that he told us once, and that is about technique. He asked us what is technique, and we fumbled around and gave convoluted answers as best we could. And then he said to us, well, technique is the ability to produce what you want. And for me, that sentence was so revelatory, because it suddenly took technique, which for me back as a young student kind of had to do with things like virtuosity, velocity, speed, executing technically difficult passages. It took that out of that and put it, from this end of the spectrum to kind of taking up the entire spectrum, because if technique is about producing what it is you want, then it's everything actually, and what you want is in every corner and every moment of the music, between every two notes, and actually it has nothing to do with anymore with virtuosity per se, but has to do rather with listening and with being aware of what you're doing. And I think it was also actually in a way so clever of him, because and so concise, so incredibly concise, because it kind of tied in together a few of his notions. One being that you have to always know what you want, that you have to choose and think and ask yourself, what do you want, anytime, at every moment of the music, and kind of hear it before and envision it. And then the notion that there's that critical ear from outside of you, sitting there listening and critiquing did you actually produce what you had intended to produce. And this is so incredible because for me, I mean, I remember, constantly in those years with him having, it was a bit of a struggle sometimes to find that right balance between being a performer who is, and an executor, right? I mean, playing the music and being, you're in it, you're deep in it, your ears are in it and you're in the making of it, but then trying to have that external space without being only in the external space, right? Keeping those both poles existing. So that was generally, I think, something Lura touched that and talked about that. But what he really gave us this, uncompromising demand to listen from the outside. But then the third notion, if to close that long sentence, of course, to listen what is the gap between what you want to execute and what you actually are executing, and then ask yourself, well, what do I change? What do I do differently? And that is the technique. I mean, what do I change in the inflection, in the texture, in the phrasing, in the space between two notes, in how the yodel or in the fingering. Of course, I mean, everything goes into that, but this was suddenly just opened just a kind of a huge spectrum. So I don't know. This was something I wanted to share.
Thank you so much, Einav, for sharing this. This is what I'm hearing from many students, that Leon Fleischer focused on teaching the students how to think for themselves, how to learn what it is inside them, to be connected with the inner self, to be able to understand what they really want. I think this was a very strong point you made, and such a clear explanation. This is a tremendous guidance for all musicians going forward from you, from Leon Fleischer's student. Einav, thank you for sharing that with us. We will be moving on to the next presenter, and please welcome on our virtual stage Ben Kim. Ben, welcome.
Hello, Anna, and everyone else. Thank you so much for organizing this, and it's been such a moving few days, being able to listen to fellow, I guess, even if I don't know everyone, what feels like family members. I'm just going to be playing the first part of Opus 117 by Brahms, which takes a special place in my heart because it was one of the fondest memories of my lessons that I had during my time with Mr. Fleischer. In the first year, I was learning with him, and so it was the first piece I thought of when I thought of him. as I was saying before I started playing, the last couple of days were so it was so amazing to see all of Mr. Fleischer's students come together and speak, what I like to say is, about his truth bombs and about how just how everything he said couldn't be less untrue. So I've been flooded with memories and thinking about him, but I'd like to just share a little story that kind of shows a little more of the mischievous side of Mr. Fleischer, as many of his students knew about. It's a story that never came to fruition. It was a plan that we had that failed. He was, when I was studying with him, he was making his kind of re-debut with Two Hands at Carnegie Hall, and all of the students went up to New York to see his performance, and he had asked me to page turn for him for the Schubert B-flat, and it was, I think, before he had recorded it as well, again, and it happened to fall on Halloween, if I remember correctly. So he wanted to play Sheep May Safely Graze as an encore, and he wanted me to pass out candy. and we had this master plan where I had tape recorders, cassette tape recorders, with what was supposed to be recordings of sheep buying, planted throughout the hall. And then we were supposed to have the sheep. We were supposed to have the sheep baa while he was playing "Sheep May Safely Graze," while I was passing out candy. That was the other side of Mr. Fleischer that I remember. And part of the reason why it failed was because I'd forgotten to download the MP3s of the sheep buying, and I remember backstage I had gone into his bathroom, and very quietly in the toilet, I was trying to record ba sounds from my own voice into these little tape recorders, and when I showed him my attempt at sheep, I won't do it again now. We put that plan to rest. It died then and there. So yeah, that was just a story that I think. I don't know, maybe he told a couple other people about it, but it was a story that I hold dearly to me, and now I'm sharing it with you. Thank you.
What an incredible story, and what a historic moment when Mr. Fleischer was finally able to come back as a two-handed pianist. That was a very, very painful and a journey which took incredible perseverance and courage on Mr. Fleischer's part. When his hand was disabled by the neurological disorder and he was not able to perform with both hands, he continued to teach and he continued himself to grow as a musician, and he made this incredible comeback, which is the lesson for all of us of dedication and perseverance and profound hopefulness and joyfulness of Mr. Fleischer's approach to life. I'm very jealous of you, Ben, of being on stage and turning pages. I would be nervous to death. I probably would pass out if Mr. Fleischer asked me to turn pages for him for that event.
It was a desert of a stage, as he called it. So it was also my big Carnegie Hall debut. That's what he also called it, I remember. And you're right. This feat of being able to play with both hands. I know he had tried it a number of times over the years, but to kind of witness that and be a part of that was really something else, and we'll hold dear and we'll never forget it.
That was an amazing memory, and thank you very much, Ben, for sharing this one with all of us. We'll be moving on to our next presenter, and please welcome on our virtual stage Jane Coop. Thank you for being with us today.
Hello, hello, Anna. I'm very happy to be here. I'm coming to you from Vancouver, and I'd like to begin by playing one of the Bach Sinfonias. This one in particular, I think, addresses the nobility and the purity that were some of the strongest aspects of Leon Fleisher. I actually studied with Leon Fleisher when he was sporting a ponytail and riding a motorcycle. I haven't actually seen any of my cohort in this wonderful stream so far, but I do know that Enrique Graf, who was in my studio class, will be presenting tomorrow. So I say hello to Enrico from here. I feel that I've been listening to everyone on this stream, and thank you again, Anna, for putting it all together. And everything that's been said so beautifully, so eloquently, rings so true for me. I mean, the fabulous metaphors, the rhythmic life, the humor, the questions he asked, all were certainly part of my whole experience with him. One of the things that I took to heart and really helped me a lot was this idea of sitting down on the bench, when you sit down to play, sitting down on it as if you were sitting right down into the center of the earth, really planting yourself on the bench. And then when you play, letting the sound rise up. I just thought that was a fantastic thing to think about. And I think about it every single time I perform. It's very helpful. Well, so many things are very helpful. I remember so much that fantastic smile of his and his voice. I think he could make a baby eat lemons and smile while doing it. He could say anything and it would be so persuasive to his students and to the world. Such a big, huge personality, but at the same time with such restraint and never any self-indulgence. I found that combination so powerful. I just have two little stories. One was that one of my lesson mates was playing Brahms D minor concerto, as most of us did at one time or another, and he was playing the third movement, and I was playing the orchestra part. We got just up to the fugue in the third movement, and Mr. Fleisher came over and sat beside me and just barreled in with the right-hand part of the fugue while I played the left-hand part. And I'm telling you, the roof nearly came off of the building at 413. And I think that my fellow student who was playing could hardly come in when he was supposed to. So that was a fantastic experience, although only a few minutes. And the other thing was that when Vladimir Horowitz came to play at the Kennedy Center, Mr. Fleischer arranged for the studio to go down to listen to the warm-up, to the rehearsal, because we weren't able to get tickets. And we sat there in the hall, and Mr. Fleischer was kind of the host for Mr. Horowitz, and brought him onto the stage and spoke to him. Now, we didn't hear what they said to each other, but there was something about Fleischer's stance that was at the same time respectful and also aristocratic that I will never forget. I will never forget, along with so many of the aspects of him that have been so beautifully expressed by everyone so far. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jane, very much for sharing those memories, and even a couple of minutes of something as memorable as that fugue. It's like other students said, grows in people's minds and hearts as we go older and more experienced. And I noticed something very important to me personally, a combination of Mr. Fleischer's teaching of being involved, being connected, being dedicated to music in the absence of self-indulgence, just like you mentioned. That is a big direction of where to look. Like Mr. Fleischer said, not everything you find is gold, but that guidance really can take people to finding gold in artistry and in just being a good human being.
Indeed, yes. And the idea also that he asked questions, that's something that I have tried to do in all my many years of teaching. I think it's a wonderful thing to ask the person, what are they meaning to do? What are they meaning to hear? And that sort of thing I felt was extremely helpful for my own dealing with students over the years.
Yes, and indeed, that's how this tremendous flock of Fleischer students, over 100 people on our group chat, will be carrying on this legacy to their students and the students of their students. This is going to be live forever.
Indeed.
And thank you for bringing this up and for your beautiful presentation. We really appreciate you being with us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
We will be moving on to our next presenter. Please welcome Joel Wizansky. Joel, welcome. Thank you for coming online to join us.
Oh, thank you, Anna, so much for making this possible for all of us.
It's been a tremendous journey for me and for everyone in our little team working on presenting Leon Fleisher students. But I wanted to ask you, is there a story behind a memory or some reason behind your choice of the repertoire for today's presentation?
Well, yes, the piece I'm playing today, which is it's a transcription of a short Bach motet, and it's a piece that I've always loved, and actually the connection for me with Mr. Fleisher is not so much from the wonderful years that I spent working with him, but the Mr. Fleisher that we know in more recent years, and particularly his sheep, which is to say of course, the wonderful transcription of Sheep May Safely Graze of Bach that he has played in recent years, that I think most of us have heard him play so transcendently and radiantly, and with which you've opened these presentations. And this is a piece that's somewhat similar, has some similarities. It's in the same key, the same pastoral sort of vein, and then has sort of the same complexities pianistically of trying to play a contrapuntal Bach piece on the piano. And in fact, I believe it was one of Mr. Fleischer's performances of The Sheep that I heard it several times, but I believe that one of them that inspired me to revisit this piece, which, as I said, I always love, and finally figure out a way to play it on the piano. So it is a piece. It's a short motet. It was written actually for a funeral, so it's elegiac and spiritual in style. But in particular, it's especially in terms of making me think of Mr. Fleischer as one of those pieces that really reaches kind of beyond into the celestial, spiritual, lofty realms, which, as we know, and as people have, I think, spoken to so eloquently this week, was really where, even in life, he hung out a great deal of the time. So for that reason, I thought it would be a fitting tribute to pay to him today.
And if you would play the piece, or would you like to speak of something else?
No, I'd be happy to share it with you now.
Can't wait to hear it. This is beautiful, beautiful story and beautiful reference. Thank you. Thank you so much, Joel, for your wonderful input and for this really amazing arrangement of the piece. It was just so delightful to hear it again. Thank you. We will be moving on to our next presenter, and please welcome Florence Millet. Thank you for joining us. Hello.
Hello, very happy to be part of this amazing event. And you are all geniuses how you put all this together. So I will play the G flat major Impromptu by Schubert, by Franz Schubert. so quite something to think of Leon Fleischer all these days, particularly since he passed away last week. But actually, I heard, I think, was it Dan Shapiro yesterday, or somebody say, in 37 years, I've thought of him every day. And yes, he marked us all so much that I think in a way or another, we just think of him. I met him at Tanglewood Festival. I was just coming freshly from Paris, and it was such a paradise. And he was actually, according to Kevin Kenner, his student who also played here a couple of days ago, he was very much more relaxed in Tanglewood than in Baltimore. I only knew him first in Tanglewood, and I was amazed at this. In Paris we're very there's a formality, and we don't. We have a formal way to speak to teachers. We get up when they come into the room. It was, and so there everybody was calling themselves each other with the first name. And I met also my other mentor, Gilbert Kalish, there, and everybody was so easygoing. It took me a while to get used to it, but I realized that it was a responsibility then to be close to these people, not only in the musical part, but even when we were meeting for lunch. We had lessons 3 times a week for 2 months in the summer in Tanglewood, and then we would have concerts, and we'd listen to open rehearsals, and then we would have master classes. The 7 pianists who were there for the 2 months, we met regularly, and then we would meet for lunch, or we would meet, informally also, sitting on the lawn and sharing the moment. And so we had to be worth as mensch, as people, to listen and to feel this immensity coming out of this person, somebody like Leon Fleischer. There were some really wonderful moments. I remember he was so good with words. So he would try to challenge me to translate words in German or French, because I'm from both countries. And he got me, because heaven is a word that you cannot translate in French or in German. He said, and he was right. I found a word, but he says, no, that's the sky. Heaven is just in English. So I just, And so I often think of this word in Opus 111, of course, of Beethoven, or heavenly length in last movements of Schubert, for example. And when I met Leon Fleischer, I was lucky to be 3 summers, 3 times 2 months in Tanglewood, and then I met him in France, in Paris. He came quite a bit to the Conservatoire de Paris, giving masterclasses, conducting, and also at the Saint-Jean-de-Luz Ravel Academy, where Ravel was born. And there he taught me with the orchestra to play the Ravel left-hand concerto. And then I met him in Berlin, where he played, and so I kept in touch with him quite a bit. And yes, I went to him first because of the Schnabel collection, right? Arthur Schnabel. And I didn't always, I didn't analyze it that much at that moment, but it really is impregnated in his being. And I realized later, this way of, so many people are impersonating him. I can't do it like this, closing the eyes and singing and playing with the left hand on the board of the piano. Some people were doing it very well. But I remember him doing 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2 here, and always going through the bar line and there, this incredible structural sense of the line, of the whole piece actually, mentioning the gravity and the pull of the planets and the calm within, the rhythm being the motor. So that were wonderful things. And a wonderful compliment once came from a bass player for me years later. I was rehearsing Trout with the bass player of the Berlin Philharmonic, Günther Pichler, who was really the big musical phenomenon in German music in Berlin for a long time. So first rehearsal, and when it was over, he said, I sense some Schnabelism in your playing. And I thought, wow. That means I haven't forgotten Leon, So yes, and funny, maybe some fun thing, because I loved Julian's memories of recollections of humor of his father. Yes, he could laugh incredibly hard, and about some silly things. Sometimes I overheard when he was giggling with Seiji Ozawa, or actually with Yudi Weiner, who were around there in Tenwood. So he was conducting for his birthday. Seiji Ozawa offered him as gift to conduct and perform the left-hand concerto by Maurice Ravel. I mean, at that time when I met him, he could not play yet with the right hand again. Later on, he started again. But then, he made him be busy with both hands. And there were many, many jokes about that. But he was also very, very serious. And the Boston Symphony Orchestra, was at his every little eye movement and breathing. And so later on, when I saw him in Berlin playing with the Berlin Philharmonic outdoors, and there were 5 cameras hovering over him, and I was so nervous for him. I didn't know how he could concentrate. So I asked him later on, he said, I do meditation, Florence. I do meditate every day. And I haven't gotten that far yet, and I hope to learn that. So yes, I guess I could go on and on, but yes, we miss Leon, but he is with us. Thank you very much, Anna, and the whole team.
Thank you, Florence, very much for those incredible memories which you shared, and about meditation, and about the incredible focus and being able to focus on himself and on the music. That's what Leon Fleisher was teaching. We hear it from just about every student who comes on this tribute. And of course, the teaching of being mensch, of being human, and embracing our humanity and its expression through music, and connecting human experiences and celestial experiences with the music we play. And I want to also notice that, yes, Leon Fleischer taught his students how to connect on a very, very human level. If you noticed, all throughout this program, we go from one home to another. These great artists courageously open their hearts, but not only hearts, their homes, to the viewers, to everyone who watches these programs. The backgrounds you see are not made up backgrounds. These are actual homes of these artists. So I feel honored to be invited into your own environment. This is an incredible journey for me. I'm sure for everyone who is watching. We'll be moving on to our next presenter. Please welcome Brian Ganz. And Brian, this is an honor to have you today with us. Thank you for joining.
Thank you. The honor is mine. I'm so thrilled to be a part of this lovely tribute to our dear teacher. Thank you for making it happen.
It's my honor and my pleasure. I think I'm enriched incredibly through this journey.
As we all are.
And Brian, I was just wondering if you would be open to share some of your memories of your own study and encounter with Leon Fleischer, please.
Absolutely. Two come to mind, but before I share those, I would like to thank all of my comrades for their beautiful playing and their beautiful comments. I haven't heard everyone, so if I repeat a story or a quote, please forgive me, but a deep bow to all of you for your artistry and for your eloquent sharing. So the first memory that comes to mind for me with Mr. Fleischer is something he said at the end of a competition that I did in the late 1980s. He was a juror. And before the winners were announced, he rose and said some words that I will never forget. They moved me deeply at the time, and they have shaped my life. He said, "There are no winners and losers in music. There are only servants of a glorious and benign art. Oh, so that's a pleasure to share with you, that beautiful quote that captures so much of the spirit of our beloved teacher.
What an amazing quote.
Yes.
Servants of benign art.
A glorious and benign art. Yeah.
That amazing.
Yes.
People were sharing that a lot of Mr. Fleischer's quotes and references keep growing
Yes.
as we all grow older and more experienced.
That's lovely. That's so true. There were so many to choose from. It was hard
Exactly.
to choose. But the other memory I wanted to share, this flows from something Florence talked about, which was his childlike sense of humor. Never childish, but often childlike. And someone asked him what it was like to play a particular piano. And he said that playing that piano was like taking off all your clothes, lying down on a fluffy rug, and having molten chocolate poured all over you. So I have yet to try that.
Speaking
it would take a lot
of
of chocolate.
speaking of indulgence,
Yes.
someone said Mr. Fleischer was never self-indulging. No, this is just a joke. But this is an incredibly exaggerate, to be able to communicate a feeling of this enormous enjoyment. Someone does have to imagine a bucket of chocolate, I think. You're so right.
It would be a good way of paying him homage to give that a try.
Yes, exactly.
Sorry, go ahead. Were you gonna?
No, exactly. I was just going to take you on that try. But I'm sure we all tried expressing that rich and decadent chocolate in the pieces where it's appropriate.
Yes. Yes, indeed. You spoke about exaggeration. He always encouraged us to exaggerate, to see where the boundaries were. How would we know how far we could go until we went too far? So that was one marvelous aspect among many of his teachings.
And an amazing thing about Leon Fleischer's own performances, he could speak to the last row of any size of the hall, any size of the audience.
Yes, a man of that size of human spirit could speak to all of us. Well said.
Absolutely.
So, shall I share the quote I had planned to share? Is this a good
Yes,
time?
please. The floor is completely yours.
Very good. The day after our beloved teacher passed, I received an email from one of my closest friends from my Peabody days in the late 90s, the late 80s and early 90s, Zach Bierkin, one of my classmates. And he said something very beautiful. I asked his blessing to share it with you, and he gave me his blessing. I know you heard him play a few days ago. I missed that, alas. So I'm looking forward to catching that on YouTube and everything else that I've missed so far. But here is what Zach said so beautifully. He was such a giant of a person and musician, so warm and generous and profound. His river ran so deep. His does feel like a passing, not an end. So thank you, Zach, for that lovely quote. And to that, I would add the thought that this tender moment is another kind of passing. All of Mr. Fleischer's life was a brilliant kind of musical torch on which we, his students, and our students, his grand students, if you will, the orchestras that he conducted, the listeners who fell in love with his playing, we all lit our candles on that torch. And now that he has passed the torch fully to us. And it is up to us, of course, to pass it on. For me, the torch that burned the brightest was that torch of service. Service to our glorious art and through our glorious art. To a world that very much needs it right now. So, now I will turn to the piano and share with you the second movement of Beethoven's Pathétique Sonata. I wish all of you good health and stay safe. Blessings to all of you, and blessings on the memory of our dear teacher.
Absolutely incredible. Thank you for your generous offering of your gorgeous music and of your wonderful memories and such a profound advice to everyone, both musically and spiritually and as a human being. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you so much for making this happen. Bless you. All the best to you and to all of Mr. Fleischer's beloved students out there. Hope to see you when it gets safe to do so. Hope to see you in person.
Oh, we will all see each other in person.
Indeed.
That will happen.
That time will come.
Yes, we'll wait for it. It'll come. Thank you again. We'll be moving on to our last presenter of today. And before we move, I would like to remind everyone that tomorrow's broadcast will be at a different time. We'll be broadcasting at 11 a.m. In the morning, not what you probably expecting at 1. So please stay with us and come tomorrow again for our last day of presenting the tribute to Leon Fleischer. And now I would like to introduce to you our last presenter of today, Dr. Irene Peery-Fox, joining us. And welcome.
Thank you, Anna, and thank you for such a wonderful week, a wonderful 6 days of presentation by Leon Fleischer students. They've been just credible. I think I spent the whole day yesterday sitting and listening to your presentations. And Brian, that was the most beautiful rendition of the Pathétique Sonata I have ever heard. And to Jane Coop, I just want to say, you will remember some people in the group. You had mentioned that you didn't know anyone, but we were both in Dr. Gladys Egbert's studio in Calgary. My maiden name was Weiss, W-E-I-S-S, so hello, Jane. And what an honor it is and a privilege to be able to give a formal tribute to my most eminent and noble piano teacher, Leon Fleischer. My love for the genius and playing of Leon Fleischer began when I was 15 years old. Just having won the CBC Talent Festival, I was invited to perform on the Calgary Philharmonic Concert Series with the Rachmaninoff Second Piano Concerto. On that same series was a pianist named Leon Fleischer, scheduled to perform the Grieg Concerto. Our pictures were side by side on the flyers and in the newspapers announcing the series. The newspaper entry for Fleischer said, quote, Leon Fleischer occupies a unique international position, dividing his time between North America and Europe with tours of France, Germany, Spain, Belgium, Holland, and Scandinavia, as well as Canada and the United States. He is a favorite guest star on radio's Telephone Hour, as well as with the New York Philharmonic Symphony for its network broadcasts. He also records for Columbia Masterworks. He made his debut in 1943 with the San Francisco Symphony, and in 1952 he became the first American to win the international competition sponsored by Queen Elizabeth of Belgium in a contest with other talented young pianists of the United States and 27 other countries. Well, his performance changed my life. What did I hear? Gorgeous sound, singing tones, pianismos like I've never heard before, with a huge range of dynamics and rich sounds, voicings that just seemed to come out of the thin air, an immense sense of long lines and phrasings, an amazing sense of climaxes and overall architecture. I could go on and on. I wanted to be able to play like that. My new musical goal was to study with Leon Fleischer if he ever became a teacher. Listening to his recordings of Beethoven and Brahms became a regular part of my life, including my children's lives. My daughter couldn't go to sleep without Brahms Concerto No. 1 with Leon Fleischer at the keyboard being played. After receiving my bachelor's and master's degree from Juilliard, Fleischer had become a teacher, so my goal became to get a doctorate degree from him at the Peabody Conservatory of the Johns Hopkins University. What an incredible experience. There is just no one like Leon Fleischer who can portray the feeling of music in such a provocative and meaningful way. I came from a very technical background. My lessons were all about building technique and playing perfectly. Fleischer's statement to me on one of my first lessons was, quote, "Build musical intent into your technique." I want to say that again. Build musical intent into your technique. That statement changed the whole way I played. He knew exactly how to say the things that would help me grow the most. When I was a student of his, I loved to make note of his little sayings that he would say, and I know that a lot of these have been said already, and this is one of the trademarks of Fleischer, his little statements, but I'm going to share some of my favorites. And one that my students get a big kick out of is open your armpits. When I first heard him say that, I thought, oh my goodness, why would we want to open our armpits? Then I realized after experimenting with that a lot, that that's what relaxed us. If our arms are really tight to our chest, we become very tense and we can't get a good sound, the kind of sound that Fleischer gets when he's just relaxed. I don't think you'd ever see him like this. And it gets this most beautiful sound. It relaxes. It makes us more capable of lifting our arms and getting a beautiful sound and using our wrists. And it just gives the most elegant and relaxed sound. Another quote, "Willful freedom, just for the sake of freedom, is not art. It must be done with intelligence and awareness." And as we all know, he was really strict on following the score, but we had to have boundaries for going outside the score. And we had to be able to really intelligently decide what those boundaries were. And we were always at the mercy of the composer. Another quote, "The great destroyer is self-consciousness. The great destroyer is self-consciousness." And if we, all of us who have performed a lot and who have taught a lot, understand that when somebody gets self-conscious in their performing, that they lose that great natural musicality and they become too centered on notes, and that helps them make mistakes and destroys our performances. So the great destroyer is self-consciousness. Another favorite, "Worship of the downbeat is dangerous." We know that one of his favorite quotes was, "Play in rhythm." And yet he also said the worship of the downbeat is dangerous. I remember him playing single notes at the top of the keyboard while students were playing in order to help them feel the beat, and yet he didn't always want it to be the downbeat that was the most important. He didn't want us to worship the downbeat, but to have wonderful rhythm. Sometimes just thinking is enough. So sometimes we're caught up so much in the notes that we forget to think, and the musicality doesn't come through, and that was a sentence I learned and heard from him a lot. Sometimes just thinking is enough. Support the composer. That goes along with the willful freedom, that we have boundaries that we have to keep, but we still can be musical while we support the composer. And I love this one, "All notes are not equally black." And what he meant by that was each note has a different color. They're not all equally black. And if we can somehow be able to glean the emotions and the sound from each of those colors, we'll have more musical, beautiful playing. And another quote that I loved was, "A sharing, not a showing." So being very careful that we're not trying to show ourselves off when we perform, but we're sharing the composer's music. The most competent and the most beautiful interpreters of music are those who follow the score absolutely perfectly with their own interpretation and boundaries. Success is the fulfillment of yourself. There's a great psychologist, Csikszentmihalyi, who talks about how we can get fulfillment out of our performances and our music. And he talks about being in a room by yourself, playing your own piano, like mine behind me, which I love, and being able to get involved in the music so much that you get so much enjoyment out of it, more than if an audience was sitting and listening to you and clapping and giving you applause. You receive your own fulfillment. And that's what Fleischer considered as success. Another quote, "I don't expect perfection, but there's no license for slobbery." You know, Fleischer talked a lot about, I don't care about mistakes. I want the musicality. And in my studio, everybody was fantastic. Nobody made mistakes, really. But there was one day that somebody was having a bad day and made more mistakes than usual. And at the end, with that gesture that we all know, where Fleisher sits, puts his head back and waits for 2 or 3 minutes before he comments, we were all a little tense because the performance hadn't gone well. And his comment was, "I don't expect perfection, but there's no license for slobbery." And I've written that on my students' contracts, where a quote by Leon Fleisher, that I want them to try. I don't care about wrong notes, but I don't expect perfection, but there's no license for slobbery. I wanted to tell just 2 short stories. One is about my 3rd doctoral recital. No. When I was going to play the Liszt La Campanella. Yes, that's right, it was the 3rd recital. And I was flying from Utah to Baltimore because I'd finished all my coursework. But I needed to come and play my concert for him, and it was the day before the recital. So I was playing the Liszt La Campanella, and Fleisher said, "You know, you play that so perfectly, you should just do it without any pedal tomorrow." And I'd been using quite a bit of pedal. And I thought, that is mean. That, to play the Campanella with all those leaps and trills, and that would be hard to do without pedal. But I was determined. I thought, okay, well, I'll show you. So I practiced for 9 hours the day of my concert, which was actually pretty good because it distracted me from my other pieces, so I wasn't nervous about them at all. And just before the concert, he came backstage and he said to me, "By the way, I was just teasing yesterday, you can pedal the La Campanella." And I thought, okay, I'm going to show you. And so I went out and played it without any pedal. And it came off really well. But what a teaching technique. That's a scary one, but it worked. Another thing I noticed when I was his student is, if a student was having a problem, they might say, "You know, I just can't get this technically in the left hand. I just can't do it. Do you have any ideas?" And he would most often divert right to the other hand. It was the left hand that had a problem. He'd divert to the right hand and say, "Oh, did you see what's going on here in the right hand? Listen how beautiful that is. Let's try this again." And so they'd try that, focused on the right hand, and the left hand had come out perfectly. And so again, he was a genius for being able to find little ways to help a student achieve. Before his comeback after his horrible hand condition, he was scheduled to play a Mozart concerto. And in one of the newspaper articles, it asked him, "How do you feel about playing the same piece that you've played before when you were younger?" In quote, he said, "My approach to Mozart isn't the same as it was a half century ago. At least I hope to God not." End quote. And so that really shows his philosophy on music and musical interpretation. We change, and our feelings change, and as long as we're still being obedient to the score, there's a lot of parameters within phrasing, within tempos, within pedalings, just like the Liszt story I told you. The lessons I can remember listening so hard to try to discover why his phrasing sounded so exquisite. I would listen, what is he doing? And after many months, I finally discovered that as the direction of the notes changed, his nuances changed. And it was such a beautiful, simple thing, but it was just genius. How I don't know if he planned that or if it was just natural for him, but he was the height, epitome of musical genius. I don't think a day goes by without me quoting one of Fleischer's sayings to a student. So Leon Fleischer is still in my daily life. Leon Fleischer has not only changed my way of thinking about and playing music, but thousands of others as well. His calmness, intelligence, and ability to communicate have touched many lives the world over. His demeanor was part of his genius and gift. The example I told you about, how he put his head back and his glasses back and made us wait for his comments. That was part of his genius demeanor. But it inspired us all. It frightened us, but it inspired us all to perform our best for him so that those comments at the end of his waiting period would be uplifting for us. On a personal note, Leon Fleisher was such a kind human being. When I asked him to give my 9-year-old daughter, Christy Peery-Fox, a lesson just because she wanted one so badly from the teacher her mom spoke so highly of, I thought it was incredible that he did that and was able to communicate on her level. She later became his student for her bachelor's degree at Peabody and cherishes him to this day. You may have heard her tribute to him a few days ago. And also that he would be interested enough in me as a student to make time for me to fly from Utah to Baltimore for a lesson on the Tchaikovsky Piano Concerto before a performance with the Utah Symphony. I thought that showed great compassion for all situations. He was a man with many kinds of gifts, not only musical, but gentleness with strength, love for all, and passion for life. I want to thank his wife Kathy also for being my youngest son Samuel Peery's first piano teacher. She instilled a love of music in him that has never wavered. We all miss the master, Leon Fleisher, but his teachings will live on forever and ever. Thank you, Leon Fleisher. We love you, we miss you, we'll love you forever, and we'll always think of you in every moment of our musical careers. Thank you.
Thank you, Irene, very much for your wonderful tribute, for those incredible quotes, full of life and humor and wisdom and sharing and direction for all of us. And with this, we will invite on our virtual stage Maestro himself. And we will hear him speak his music, his life, his wisdom, his love, through the medium which he dedicated himself to fully, through his own piano playing. Please be with us as we admire and love Leon Fleischer's own performance.